Hi, I'm Pete Fletzer, and I am one of the hosts of ATG Live and Around the Galaxy. I've been doing my Star Wars podcasting for about 7 or 8 years, and I've been a Star Wars fan since I was 7 years old. I saw it in the theaters in 1977, before it was A New Hope, before it was Episode 4. It was just Star Wars, and that's where my Star Wars journey began.
I'm Becca Benjamin. I am co-host at Tarkin's Top Shelf. It's primarily a Star Wars literature podcast. It's infused with other Star Wars media. My gosh, my journey probably started around 4-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know when I could classify myself as a fan, like put the label on it. I don't remember when that happened. It just always was there. I saw Star Wars like you when it was just Star Wars. Because it was one of the very first blockbusters other than Jaws.
Right.
Again,
and our parents were going to take us to Jaws, right? We were a little too, I was a little too young for Jaws, but it's become one of my favorite movies, by the way.
But it has always traumatized me from the time I saw it. I can't go into a natural body of water. Thank you. But that just also means that he did his job with that movie.
He did. It worked, right?
Exactly. Right. So when it comes to the Star Wars thing, I really don't remember if I was around 4. I think because it played for an entire year in theater because it was just so big. So I think I might have seen it actually in 78, not really 77, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
The memory's vague because, again, I was so little. I just remember big moments in the movie. Like my biggest memory of the original Star Wars is Luke and Leia swinging across the chasm in the Death Star. That's what I remember. Yeah, that's what stands out.
I'm the same way, even though I was 7 years old. Like everybody likes to talk about, I remember the starship rumbling over top. That's not, when I think back to the first time I saw Star Wars, I think of the Jawas carrying R2-D2. Like that's the thing. When I walked out of the theater, that was the image that was burned into my head. And then I remember driving home that afternoon in the car with my dad. I was sitting in the way far back of the station wagon before safety was invented. And I was pretending to be shooting down TIE fighters as we were driving. And and from that moment on, it was like stuck with me forever. And it's we're kind of lucky in that regard because we can remember a world a little bit before, or at least when Star Wars like grabbed us, because we did have a little, I mean, you were a little younger, but we did have a little bit of a life before it happened. And then it's wild because our lives probably changed direction as a result of that. The people we hung out with, the people that, the things that we did, like, I don't know about you, but I used to like sketch X-Wings and TIE fighters all over my, my school books and things. But that's, I think, one of the things that makes our generation of fandom a little bit different, not better, not anything like that. But we kind of jumped on the train just as it was leaving the station. And I think that gives us a slightly different perspective. What do you think?
I agree with that. For me, it was a little different. Growing up, I didn't hit my young, like my elementary years until 1980. That's when I went to school. It was about 1980. So my family is kind of what pulled me into Star Wars. So we did a lot of camping. The whole family. So, and of course, back then there wasn't toys like, you couldn't go to the store and buy Han Solo's blaster. You couldn't go to the store and buy a lightsaber in 79. It just wasn't a thing yet. So we would play in the woods when we go camping. Me and all my cousins, most of them were all older. I had a couple younger ones than I, but we'd play, we'd make our weapons out of the sticks, right? Out of the wood. And my mother would patiently do my hair in the Leia buns, things like that. So we could all hang out. But the funniest thing, because again, this is showing you that different time of things, was that I was always told, well, you can't be this because you have to be Leia. Basically telling me, well, you're a girl, so you can't have a lightsaber. You can't have this. You can't have that. So it was like, well, what am I going to do? Even when the toys, my brother had all the action figures, and when his friends weren't around to play, then I was allowed to play, but I could only have Leia.
Wow, that's
it made me so mad. I just wanted Darth Vader. Well, of course, for me, it was Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
I didn't have the front teeth, so it was Darth Vader. I remember that, just all the time, Darth Vader, so it's crazy.
But it's interesting too, though. And the very first, or one of the first episodes Around the Galaxy I did, 7-8 years ago, whenever that was an author friend of mine named Bill Pricestock, who writes really interesting sort of noir mysteries and things like that with a slightly adult bent, but that's neither here nor there. He's a great friend of mine, and actually, he was one of the people who reviewed my book before it came out, and gave me some feedback. Anyway, long story short, one of the things he talked about, and he's a couple years older than me, but he still thinks back about Leia as like the first character that he was like, oh, girls can do anything, right? And that was followed by Ripley from Alien, who of course now is going to be in Mando, which is so cool. But yeah, I mean, it was really kind of a first from that perspective, and in that, like, it wasn't like, oh, she's just the girl in the movie, and I hate to even say it like that in jest now, 50 years later, but that was kind of the case in a lot of the movies. That it was like she's the girl that's just there to be the love interest for the boys to fight over and to get in trouble, so they have to save her. But I still remember, like, and I guess I was young enough not to be sort of influenced by society too much, but I remember vividly, like, when she grabbed the blaster, I was like, wow, this person, it didn't matter if she was male or female. It was like, this person they're there to rescue, she's not taking any guff. She's taking the lead. And I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, there was definitely something very powerful, especially as I got older and you go back and you watch that moment. She was a take charge individual, more
Yeah.
so than anyone else in that group, right?
Yes, that's
She
true.
basically
Yep.
saved herself. She just needed someone to open up the door, and she was, that was it.
Yep.
And they always say where one door closes, another one opens. That to me is a definition of Leia in that film.
Oh, wow.
She just ran with it. She didn't wait for anyone else to come up with a plan. Just like when she said, "That's your plan,"
Yeah.
this he's like, well, he's the brains, sweetheart.
Yep.
I just love
Well,
that. Like
and it's
blaming
true.
somebody
Yeah, I mean,
else.
I think if it was like a 1950s or 60s movie or whatever, when Luke opened the door, she would go and hug him and say, "Oh, you saved me." Instead, she's like, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?" So she starts with the wisecrack that just lets you know she's in charge here. And Luke is essentially the damsel in distress in some of that movie, right? Because
Yes.
he's not sure what to be doing, and she takes the action.
Yeah. And, it's actually beautiful writing. As much as people like to say that, certain things George just wasn't good at, which I will say dialogue was never his real strong suit, but
Right.
stuff like this,
Yeah.
he did an excellent job with how she was, you know, I guess perceived. We
Yeah.
didn't really have that, like you said, and then we had, Ripley, which is
Yep.
just, beautifully done. I just, and I love that because I feel like that was the start
Hmm.
of these strong women characters that we would get throughout, sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that more so now in our Star Wars, which is
Yeah.
great to see
And
because,
that's
like
why
you
I'm
said,
so
in the beginning, it was just her.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so surprised when the quote unquote true fans, right? We won't go into who those people are and give them too much credit, but it's interesting to me the people who claim to be OG Star Wars fans, people who have been around as long as you and I have, who suddenly say Star Wars is woke and they're pushing in women and they're forcing diverse. I mean, Star Wars, yeah, they were a little slow. It took to the second movie to get Lando. So from that perspective, it was all white British guys. I get it, but Star Wars has always been. I mean, for the '70s, Lando and Leia were new types of characters, and honestly, the reality is, I think things like Jyn Erso's character and Jana, who got ripped off, but should definitely be getting some more. I think she should get some more time. But all the women characters, Padme, everybody, they're not a surprise.
No.
They're just great, and they follow in the footsteps of Leia. And I feel like if people see anything other than it being an homage to the first strong woman character seen on screen with a Star Wars logo, then they've totally missed the point. Because I mean, Jin is she's in. I wish there was a scene with Jin and Leia, because she's just the non-royalty version of Leia. She
Yeah.
with all her wisecracks and pushback to the Rebel Alliance when they first capture her, that tells you, hey, I'm not gonna take it. I'm not just a pushover. I've got things to do and thoughts that I want to pursue.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that because when you look at Rogue One,
Hmm.
there's that specific moment where Jin basically gets to lead that whole council meeting about whether or not they should go forward with Scarif, right?
Yep.
And there's a moment when she's doing the briefing and she's pouring her heart out about, what choice do we have? We don't have a choice. Like, we need to
Right.
take our chances now. And there's that moment where there's that exchanged glance in between Mon Mothma and Bail. And I always looked at that like, this is Leia right here.
Yeah.
Like they're like
That's a cool way
connecting,
to look at
going,
it.
where
Yep.
have we seen this before?
Yeah.
And I think they're either thinking Leia, or I thought, is it Padme? But I'm thinking
Right.
Leia. I always go back to
Right.
him thinking, she's right. We got to listen to our youth,
Yep.
you know, which I don't feel a lot of people spend a lot of time doing.
No, but
and,
you know, another
parents, I'm bringing that in there.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean,
listen to your youth.
I'm so lucky because my daughter is sometimes way too smart for her own good, but she's you know, I've learned to, and you know, maybe there was a Star Wars influence that made me look at her, you know, a little bit more independently, a little bit more powerfully than maybe I would have 20 years ago, for example. But I think one last thing about Jin that has always stood out to me too is, and it's kind of in line with Leia rescuing herself, is when she has to inspire all the guys on the U-wing. She's like, you know, hey guys, let's go do this, right? She's, you know, we'll go until we'll take one chance and then we'll take the next chance. And she's the one giving the inspirational speech. It's not Cassian, it's not Chirrut, it's the one woman who's leading this charge and has this incredible faith and belief in what she's doing, and she's able to inspire a crowd. And I think that's, you know, maybe that's a good way to look at it, is it's not necessarily just the traditional strength, right? Whether it's physical or emotional strength. It's that these are women that inspire action from people who know it's the right thing to do, but may not know what to do, or may not be quite ready to jump that line. And, you know, we were talking before we started recording, that's an important thing today. And if that's a lesson that my kids take from watching Star Wars, or 5 and 6 year olds watching Star Wars, if they take this lesson that anybody can inspire you to do what's right, then that's the win, right? And whether it's a woman, whether it's Yoda, whether it's, you know, whoever, that's really a powerful message. And maybe that's what George was trying to do in the first place.
Yeah, you know, and I love that moment because she's harnessing Saw there. She uses something that Saw Gerrera would say to everyone before they went on a mission. And what I love is that moment actually resembles what we see in Empire Strikes Back with Leia when she's talking to all the pilots.
Yep.
You know, they're on Hoth. So again, it's a woman leading the charge from her own area, you know, from whatever she's doing. But again, you have to think Jin went right into the heart of the moment, like right into the heart of the beast, really.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, it's incredible.
I would love to get some stories about young Jin working with Saw. I think, because I would love to see how she evolved beyond Saw's sort of pure, almost terrorist approach, and her intelligence to know, hey, we can't just go in and bomb everything. We have to be smart about this. We have to. So, and her, even the response, because there's so much happening in that moment when Saw and Jin come, and just the way, I think, you know, I know we're going a little off topic, but just the way Saw, it's such a good job of showing his paranoia, right? The way he's like, out of nowhere, Jin Erso shows up and they sent her to kill me. What a perfect choice that is. She's I would never see it coming. But I think that's what's great about the whole Cassian Andor era of Star Wars, is it's showing that complexity, and that, you know, things aren't simple, and good guys aren't clear, and the bad guys sometimes aren't clear either. So
right. Well, there is a book on that, Rebel Rising, by Beth Rivas. Yes.
Okay.
It's a YA novel. Yeah.
Is that about Jin?
Yep. It leads up to when it starts, when he actually takes her from her home world, when, you know, he takes her out of her little bunker there and raises her, and then when he leaves her behind.
All right. Well, then I'm gonna have to. That'll be my next book on
Rebel
tape
Rising.
that I'm getting.
So
Rebel Rising.
Yeah.
Because I read the one that was right before, and I can't remember what that one was called. The one that was sort of the prequel to Rogue One. What was that?
That's it. Oh, are you? Oh, you're reading Catalyst. You're talking Catalyst.
Catalyst. That's the one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This one is just Jin. It's Jin.
Just Jin. Yeah. So, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Great. I think talking about what, you know, the lessons we got from Leia, I think is is great too, because it's interesting too what you were saying. I never played with the girl action figure because I felt like I'm a guy, I'm not going to do that. But I always, it was so weird. Like I can't even describe it. But I do remember. I remember this is a weird little story. I remember my best friend and I. We were going to make a Star Wars home movie on 8mm, and we had to talk the girl across the street who is our same age into being in the movie. She had dark hair and she was like the perfect Leia. We never ended up doing it, but we did have to it was so funny because she like, I don't think she really fully understood Star Wars until we started showing her this stuff. And I feel like at that point she was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool. So maybe we got somebody into Star Wars. I don't know where she is these days or what she ended up doing. Maybe she's got kids who are Star Wars fans, or maybe not. Who knows? So if you like this conversation and conversations like it, join us and 8 of our closest friends, 9 of our 7 are some of our closest friends on a regular basis talking about Star Wars from this Generation X perspective. It's called the Tril-OGs, and you want to be a part of it.
If you enjoy this little conversation, tune in for more Tril-OGs. Who knows? Maybe you'll be inspired by something we have to say, Have some respect for your elders. Oh gosh, I sound like my father.
Oh, that was great.